Continuing this section, we're going to work a little bit more with percents. And these first few examples, for several examples actually here, we're going to be tasked with finding the percent of a number. And there's two things that are important to remember. The first is that when you see the word of, a percent of a number, that means you're going to be multiplying. However, you do not, for instance, the first one, 70% of 280, you do not just take 70 times 280. What you first need to do is turn that percentage into its decimal form. To turn a percent into a decimal, you're dividing it by 100. So 70% would become 0.70. So again, there's two things you need to do. Of means multiply. And then when you multiply, you're going to be multiplying by the percentage in its decimal form. So whenever you're working with equations and you see a percent, you want to just kind of automatically, there's maybe one or two exceptions, but the rule of thumb is automatically turn it into its decimal form. So 70% times 280 would again be 0.70 times 280. And you can just work that out on the calculator. So 0.70 times 280, 196. So these are really just calculator problems. Unless you quite enjoy multiplication by hand, then go to town. The second one here, 120% of 84. So 120%, when you divide by 100 or just move that decimal point 2 places to the left, you get 1.20 times 84. And then we'll go to the calculator and work this out. And by the way, the 0 here, when you turn it into decimal form, you could drop the 0. For example's sake, I'm leaving it in just to reflect the 0 that was in the percentage. But it will not impact your answer. When you go to multiply, if you multiply 1.20 times 84 or just 1.2 times 84, you will get the same answer. In this case, it's 100.8. The next one, 38% of 751, that's 0.38 times 751. So that's 285.38. The next one, 7.5% of 20,000. So dividing by 100, which again is the same as moving that decimal point 2 places to the left, you get 0.075, and you're going to multiply that by the $20,000. So here we're dealing with dollars, a percentage of dollars, so our answer is going to also be in dollars. So we get $1,500. Couple more. The next one is 0.02% of 27,481. Writing this in its decimal form, even though there's a decimal point in it, it is still in percentage form. In its decimal form, this one is going to be 0.0002. And then we multiply that by 27,481. So we end up with 5.4962. If you were tasked with rounding this, let's say to 2 decimal places, that 0.49 is followed by a 6, so it would round up to 0.50. So if you had to round this, it would be 5.50. And in your homework, it will tell you when and if to round. And if it doesn't want you to round, it will tell you to how many places. So the last one of these is 1.05% of 845. So again, turn this percentage into its decimal form. Move that decimal point 2 places to the left. So that's going to be 0.0105 times 845. When you multiply, you're going to end up with 8.8725. And again, if you were to round this to 2 decimal places, that would be approximately 8.87. So very straightforward when you're finding the percent of a number. Of means multiply, and then turn that percent to its decimal form. I want to do one last example in this video where we're going to apply this knowledge here. And it says Michelle's salary jumped to $50,400 after her 5% raise. What was her former salary? I'm going to use the variable S to represent her former salary. So she got a 5% raise, so that's 5% of S. We've just done several problems on how to do this. So that would be 5% in its decimal form, 0.05 times S. That represents her raise. Her new salary is going to be her raise plus her old salary. So again, that new salary, $50,400, it's her old salary plus the raise. Sometimes people can get a little tripped up here with what to do on the left-hand side. You're just adding. These are like terms. And remember, the second S really has a 1 in front of it. So what you're doing is you're adding 0.05 to 1, and you just end up with 1.05S equals the 50,400. So to solve for S, you're just going to divide both sides by 1.05. Running out of space here. But when you do that, you find that her initial salary, her starting salary, was $48,000.